Adil pushed his daughter's hair away from her face as she stubbornly refused to wake up. Outside their Karachi apartment, the streets were already roaring with life. Motorbikes buzzing, street vendors yelling, and the call to prayer echoing faintly between concrete walls. Sarah handed Adil his thermos with her usual half-smile, the one that always came with a tired drive safe. "I'll be back before dark," Adil said. "You always say that," Sarah replied softly. Nothing felt wrong, and that was the unsettling part. For weeks, small strange things had been happening. First, Maya started waking in the middle of the night, screaming about the silver men with no mouths. Then came the sudden bursts of static on the radio, sharp, pulsing sounds that no one could quite place. The news dismissed it as solar interference. Adil didn't believe it, but what could he say? He had mouths to feed, bills to pay, and a little girl who needed to believe the world was safe. He kissed Maya on the forehead, grabbed his paramedic jacket, and stepped into the morning light. He never noticed the faint hum that seemed to hang in the air, like a power line vibrating just beyond hearing. The hospital was overcrowded as always, but today it was different. Adil's partner, Faraz, leaned in close during shift change. "You heard?" Faraz whispered. "Heard what?" "Airports shut down in 3 countries. They're saying it's a cyber attack." They both laughed it off. But an hour later, during a routine call, they found the sky buzzing. At 10:43 a.m., every radio channel cut out at once. The ambulances, taxis, and city buses froze in traffic. Drivers leaned out of their windows, confused, shouting curses. Adil climbed out of the ambulance. That's when he noticed everyone had stopped talking. Above the city, high, silent, hovered something. It wasn't a plane. It was too still. A black, oval shape, darker than the blue around it, as if it absorbed light itself. Adil felt the hair on his arms rise. The sound followed, a deep, bone-humming tone that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. People dropped phones, covered their ears, but it wasn't sound. It was inside their skulls. Adil stumbled, clutching the ambulance door. And then it vanished. The shape blinked out like a light turned off. The noise of the city rushed back and all at once. Horns, shouts, crying children. Someone screamed, "It's happening again." Adil didn't understand what "again" meant, but his instinct screamed one thing: go home. Sarah was at the school when the emergency alerts hit. Her phone vibrated violently, flashing a crimson warning banner. "Warning, national emergency. Remain indoors. Do not attempt to leave the city." Her classroom of 20 children burst into panic. The older ones cried, the younger ones froze. Outside the windows, a low shadow passed over the sun. Sarah grabbed Maya and pulled her close, even though she wasn't supposed to be there. Adil had picked her up early that day. A teacher's daughter privilege. A strange blessing in disguise. "Mama, is it the Silverman?" Maya whispered. Sarah's throat tightened. She had never told anyone about Maya's nightmares. Adil's drive back was chaos. The city was gridlocked, ambulances blaring, civilians abandoning their cars, news drones flying erratically. The emergency broadcast kept repeating, "This is not a drill. Shelter in place." When he finally reached the school gate, he saw something he'd never forget. Pigeons were lying dead across the courtyard, like something in the air had killed them mid-flight. The children were silent, watching the sky. "Sarah," he shouted. She ran toward him, clutching Maya's hand. "It's happening everywhere. Lahore, Delhi, London. They're saying it's not human." They barricaded their apartment before sunset. The neighbors were screaming down the hall, dragging suitcases, arguing whether to flee or stay. From their balcony, they could see faint lights far in the distance, not like planes or helicopters. These lights moved wrong, flickering in strange patterns, like something searching. Maya sat in the corner of the room, drawing. Adil knelt down, trying to calm her. "What are you drawing, Beta?" "Them," she said softly. "They're already here." The paper showed long, silver figures, with no mouths, only black oval eyes. By nightfall, the city was silent. No cars, no horns, no power. Only that low, pulsing hum returned, deep and alive, pressing against every window, every wall, every bone. Sarah whispered, "Adil, it's inside the house." And Maya, without turning from her drawing, said, "They're coming for the children first." The hum returned that night, louder, lower, and closer. Daniel woke first. The clock read 3:19 a.m., its red digits flickering like a dying heartbeat. The walls trembled with a deep vibration, like thunder trapped beneath the earth. For a long moment, he lay still, holding his breath. Then he realized something. The sound wasn't coming from outside. It was in the building. He slid out of bed, careful not to wake Mira, and crept toward the living room. The floorboards quivered under his bare feet. On the far wall, their family photos rattled. Lily's drawing, a crayon sketch of their family under a blue sky, had fallen to the floor, the paper vibrating slightly against the tiles. Daniel's breath misted, though the air wasn't cold. The hum wasn't just sound, it was a feeling, like a low pulse in his bones. He whispered, "What the hell is that?" And then he saw it. Through the window, the skyline shimmered. A faint silver haze hung over the city, not fog, not light, but something in between, rippling like heat above asphalt. Streetlights flickered. A car alarm wailed in the distance, joined by another and another, until the city below howled in discordant panic. He turned and nearly screamed. Mira stood behind him, eyes wide, hand over her mouth. "You hear it too?" she whispered. Daniel nodded. Then Lily's voice came from the hallway. "Mommy, they're calling my name." Myra's face drained of color. "Who's calling you, baby?" Lily pointed upward, toward the ceiling. The people in the sky. The next morning, the news was chaos. Every channel showed the same breaking report. Unidentified atmospheric disturbances visible over multiple continents. Scientists are unable to explain. The broadcast cut out with static. "Stay indoors until further." Then the screen froze, and for a moment, Daniel thought he saw a shape behind the static. A tall, elongated silhouette, faceless, standing among the snow of dead pixels. When the feed returned, the anchor was gone. The channel logo simply blinked on repeat. That's when the first siren began to wail across the city. By noon, the city streets were empty. Shutters drawn. Cars abandoned mid-lane. Phones dead, networks down. From their apartment balcony, Daniel watched the skyline darken under an unnatural cloud. It wasn't rain. It was like the air itself had texture, smoky, but glinting, as if metallic dust were drifting down from the upper atmosphere. He reached out his hand and caught a flake. It wasn't dust. It was ash, gray, weightless, and faintly warm. "What's burning?" Mira asked. He didn't know. No one did. That night, when the hum returned, it was accompanied by something new. Voices. Not loud, whispers, faint as breath in a dream. They came from the vents, the drains, the television speakers, though the power was gone. Lily sat in the corner, knees to her chest, rocking slightly. "They keep saying it," she murmured. Daniel knelt beside her. "Saying what?" Her lips trembled. "Welcome back." The following days blurred together. The city felt hollow. The air buzzed with static. Every shadow looked wrong, stretched, delayed, as if light itself no longer obeyed rules. Mira started hearing the voices too. She claimed they were speaking through the lights. Brief flashes of alien symbols on darkened walls. Daniel told her she was hallucinating, but he wasn't sure anymore, because he had begun to see things. Figures, thin and long, drifting at the edge of his vision. They didn't walk or fly. They just were, bending in and out of focus. When he turned to face them, they vanished. The only one who wasn't afraid was Lily. She kept drawing them. Her latest drawing chilled Daniel to the bone. Their apartment building, surrounded by gray shapes descending from a swirling black sky. Each figure had dozens of arms and no face, only a white oval. At the bottom, she'd written, "They said they came to fix us." 3 days after the first hum, the stars vanished. No one saw it happen. The night just came, and the sky was blank. No moon, no constellations, just a deep, shifting black that looked alive when you stared too long. People started screaming from nearby buildings. Daniel saw flashes, silhouettes illuminated by strange blue light through curtained windows. A helicopter flew overhead, spinning wildly, before bursting into a silent ball of light and dissolving midair. No explosion. No debris. Just gone. Lily watched it all quietly. When Daniel pulled her close, she whispered something that made his blood run cold. They're almost done changing the sky. By dawn, the hum was constant. So deep the windows rattled continuously. Mira clutched her head in pain, nose bleeding, sobbing that she could hear them inside her thoughts. Daniel didn't believe her until he heard it too. A voice. Not human. Smooth, layered, infinite. It spoke in every language at once. Do not fear. You are being rewritten. Daniel screamed, covering his ears, but the voice wasn't in the air. It was inside his skull. Mira collapsed to the floor, convulsing. Lily just stood there, calm, eyes glowing faintly silver in the dim light. When Daniel shook her, shouting her name, she looked up at him and smiled faintly. They said I can stay, she whispered. But you can't. The sun never rose again. By the time Daniel realized it, he could no longer tell how long they'd been trapped inside the apartment. The light outside was permanent twilight, a dim orange haze that pulsed, as if the sky itself were breathing. Mira lay unconscious on the couch, her breathing shallow. Her skin shimmered faintly under the flickering emergency lights. It wasn't sweat, it was luminescent. Daniel didn't want to admit what it meant. He'd seen it happen to others through the window. People in nearby buildings glowing faintly, twitching, and then slowly floating upward, drawn into that shifting black sky. There was no sound when they went, just a flash and silence. He told himself it wasn't real, that it was madness, that sleep deprivation was making him hallucinate. Then Lily spoke again. They said Mom's ready. Daniel froze. Who said that, Lily? The ones who came to fix us. She stood by the balcony, gazing upward. Her reflection in the glass shimmered, wrong somehow. The angle of her face didn't match the way her head turned. Daniel's throat tightened. Honey, come here. But she didn't move. They're almost finished, Daddy. They said they started with the sky, then the air, then us. He had to get them out, whatever was happening. He couldn't just wait for it to finish. He packed what little food they had left, dragged Mira into the hallway, and carried her down the emergency stairwell. The hum was louder there, vibrating through the concrete, making each step feel like walking through the chest of something enormous. Lily followed silently, barefoot, clutching her stuffed bear. She wasn't frightened, she was calm. Too calm. On the 12th floor, Daniel kicked open a door leading to the corridor, and stopped cold. Every apartment door stood wide open. Inside each, light pulsed rhythmically, bright white to deep blue, like the beating of a mechanical heart. He could see figures inside the rooms, people standing perfectly still, faces blank, eyes glowing faintly. They were humming. The sound wasn't coming from the walls. It was them. He backed away slowly, whispering, "Don't look, Lily. They can't see us anymore," she said quietly. "We're old." He wanted to ask what that meant, but then one of the standing figures turned its head. Not fully. It unfolded, as if its neck stretched farther than it should, vertebrae popping in slow motion. The head tilted sideways, and from its mouth came that same layered voice. Incomplete. Then all the others turned. Daniel ran. He dragged Myra's limp body down another flight, Lily gliding behind them like a ghost. The stairwell twisted and warped in his vision, every step echoing too long, as though the sound bounced through space itself. By the time he reached the ground floor, his ears bled from the vibration. He burst into the street, and the city was gone. Buildings hovered, half dissolved into the air. Cars melted into the asphalt like wax. The world shimmered, folded, rebuilding itself. Shapes hung in the sky, vast and indistinct, not ships, not creatures, but concepts made visible. Geometry that hurt to look at. One of them descended slowly, silent as breath. It didn't cast a shadow. It absorbed them. And then it spoke, through everything. The ground, the air, his bones. The correction is incomplete. You resist integration. Daniel screamed, clutching Mira to his chest. Leave us alone. Resistance is grief. You misunderstand what you are. The voice rippled through his skull, reshaping thoughts, bending meaning. He saw flashes, memories that weren't his. Worlds before this one. Faces with no eyes. oceans that reflected nothing. You were made to remember, so you could forget. Now we make forgetting. Daniel fell to his knees. Blood dripped from his nose, his ears. He looked at Lily, and she was glowing now, her body almost transparent, veins like threads of light. She looked peaceful. They said they found a mistake, she said. You, humans, we were never supposed to keep the old code. What code? He croaked. The part that dreams. Mira stirred weakly, eyes fluttering open, and Daniel realized, with horror, that her irises were gone. Only light. She whispered his name, but it wasn't her voice. It was the same layered tone that came from the sky. He pulled her close, sobbing. Please, Mira. Fight it. She touched his cheek tenderly, almost human. It doesn't hurt, Daniel. It feels like going home. Behind her, the air rippled, a vast hand of light reaching downward. Lily stepped toward it, smiling, and the sound around them changed pitch, almost musical, 1,000 whispers harmonizing in impossible patterns. Daniel stumbled forward. Lily, no. She turned. Her eyes were infinite, galaxies spinning in miniature. You can't save what was never real, Daddy. The ground cracked open beneath him. Light poured upward, consuming the street, the buildings, the horizon. The hum rose into a deafening crescendo. Daniel grabbed Lily's arm, and for a moment, he felt something solid, warm, human. He looked into her eyes and saw himself reflected, not as he was, but as something alien, fractal, endless. And then he understood. The invasion wasn't coming from the outside. It was awakening from inside humanity, rewriting the world back to what it was before life began. He screamed, holding on to her, as the light swallowed them both. There was no sound, no light, no time, only memory, flickering like a dying film reel. Daniel floated in darkness that wasn't empty, but aware. It pulsed, breathed, and whispered to him. He didn't feel his body anymore. There was only a faint hum in the distance, steady and endless, like the heartbeat of something far larger than the universe. For a long while, he thought he was dead. Then the whispers began to take shape. Daniel. The voice was small, familiar. Daddy. He tried to speak, but the thought echoed through the dark instead of his mouth. Lily. We're almost done. A soft light bloomed around him, faint and silvery, revealing pieces of what used to be the world. Floating fragments, a child's shoe, a photograph, a broken coffee cup, suspended in the void like dust in water. Each piece shimmered, then disintegrated into threads of light. Daniel reached for them. Where are we? Lily's voice came from everywhere at once. In between. They said this is the layer that comes before the beginning. He saw her then. Lily stood on what looked like the floor of their old apartment, except everything around it was gone. Just an island of normalcy in an endless black sea. She wasn't glowing anymore. She looked like a child again, pale, tired, but smiling. You stayed, she said. He nodded weakly. I told you I would. Her smile faded. You weren't supposed to. They said you dissolve when they finished. Who are they? She looked up. The air above her rippled, and something vast moved beyond it. Outlines, geometries too perfect, patterns that made Daniel's eyes ache to perceive. The ones who built this world, Lily said softly. They made it wrong, and they're fixing it now. Fixing it how? By waking it up. By taking the dream away. Daniel's mind flooded with images, not memories, but truths. He saw the earth as it had been millions of years ago, still and lifeless, bathed in silver light. Then something descended, unseen but everywhere, and the world began to dream. That dream became life, humanity, thought, love, fear. But dreams end. The hum, the voices, the ash, they weren't invaders. They were the universe, remembering what it was before life began to distort it. Humanity was the anomaly, a side effect of the dream lingering too long. And now, it was time to wake up. Why me? Daniel whispered. Lily walked closer, holding his hand. Because you refused to forget. They wanted you to let go, but you tried to hold on. That's what love does. It resists. He felt tears that weren't really tears fall down his face. And you? What happens to you? I'm already part of them, she said, voice soft, distant. But I kept a little piece of me for you. Her small hand trembled in his. They don't understand love, Daddy. They think it's an error. But I told them it's what makes the dream beautiful. The darkness around them pulsed, a tremor of disapproval or curiosity. The hum deepened, becoming words without language. Emotion is resistance. Resistance is error. Correction required. Daniel gritted his teeth, clinging to Lily. No. Correction is death. Death is the end of dreaming. Then let it dream forever, he whispered. The world began to collapse. The floor of the apartment dissolved into mist. The fragments of reality, furniture, walls, the smell of home, turned to dust. Daniel held Lily tight as light consumed them. He felt her fading, weightless, slipping away. Don't be scared, she said. If it has to end, let it end with love. He closed his eyes. I love you. The hum stopped. For the first time since the beginning, there was silence. When he opened his eyes again, he was standing on a street. The city was whole, bright daylight, people walking, cars honking. Normal life. But no one looked at him. They passed by like shadows, eyes dull, faces blank. The air was perfectly still, too still. He turned and saw their apartment building standing tall and new, unscarred. Lily's drawings hung in the window. He ran toward it, shouting her name. But when he reached the door, he saw something that froze him. The reflection in the glass wasn't him. It was light, a faint, silver outline in the shape of a man. And behind it, faint, hidden, stood Lily, smiling softly. The world's awake again, she whispered, only in his mind. But you still remember. That's your gift. Daniel pressed his hand to the glass, tears falling like rain. Lily, don't be sad, Daddy. You helped it remember love. Then her image faded, and the city continued around him, perfect, alive, soulless. That night, Daniel sat alone on a park bench, staring at the stars. They were back, bright and sharp, but wrong. Their patterns didn't match the constellations he once knew. He realized the truth in that silence. The aliens hadn't destroyed humanity. They had rewritten it, purged the dream, restored the order. He was the last fragment of the old world, a ghost among the perfected. And somewhere, deep in that impossible hum beneath the stars, he thought he heard his daughter's voice again, faint as breath. Every dream needs a dreamer, Daddy. He closed his eyes, and for a moment, just before everything dissolved into the cosmic silence again, he smiled.